All right. I have 7 o'clock. You guys ready?
Yes. Yep.
Ready?
Yes, Pledge of Allegiance.
Soup.
Are the legislators all here? I just see Dennis.
Huh? No, they may be late because they're going to be, they're in session. So, all right, let's go. Call to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So welcome to our February 11th, 2020 Tiverton School Committee meeting. I'd like to welcome members of the Town Council and the Budget Committee here at our invitation, as well as members of our legislative delegation. I see Representative Canario here, and I think that others are coming but are currently in session. So at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Edwards, if you have a quorum, would you like to open your meeting, or are you still waiting on a quorum? I think you have 5. Okay, so if you don't have a quorum, you're more than welcome to sort of pitch in here, but you're not in violation of open meetings law. If you have other members, we'll let you open your meeting. And Ms. DiMederos, you have a quorum, so I'll invite you to open your meeting.
I do. I'd like to open the meeting of February 11th of the Tiverton Town Council. I'd like to do a roll call. Councilor Clark? Here. Councilor Cook? Here. Councilor Perry? Present. Councilor DiMederos here. Councilor Hilton is on her way. And Edwards and Grid are not present.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone signed up for open forum? Okay. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion. Second.
All those in favor? Dr. Sanchioni? Anything really to mention?
Not on the consent agenda.
Okay. I'd like to ask for a motion to continue item 9A and B, policy 1142 and policy 1023, second reading.
Make that motion. Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Are we pulling it off the agenda entirely this evening?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to continue it, right?
Yeah, continue it to our next meeting.
We've got to get that done.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Okay, thank you.
Make that motion now.
Yeah, I'm going to ask for a motion to move up item 10H and 10I.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Okay, item 10H is esports club request. Dr. Sanchioni?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. David Carnavale to come up to the microphone to talk a little bit about the esports club. It's how it's infant beginnings to how it's expanded now to a highly functioning, highly successful team that we're proud to have here and represented the Tiverton High School. So, Mr. Carnavale.
Good evening. So this is going to be kind of broken up into 2 different types of discussions. I'd like to thank our representatives for being present this evening. As you may be aware, we started the first ever esports season for the town of Tiverton, and we were the top-ranked school going into state championships. We battled Bishop Hendricken in the state finals, and unfortunately we lost. Before the match, one of our team members actually wrote a great motivational speech for the kids, because we were kind of down when we were going into this, because Hendricken does have a good team, and they've always had good teams and everything. But Mr. Toms and Mr. Toms is the assistant coach of the team. One of the things that we took from this speech was, this is one of the lines from the speech that he gave us. You could win your very first title in anything. Johnson & Wales, let us do this in this very school. So let's make most of this very moment. You are officially the best league players in the state, and you've got to prove that tonight. So we went in with that speech that was written by one of our students and one of our gamers, and we were very, positive and everything. I'd like to introduce the members of the team to the committee, and on how we did a very good job in the season, and the fact that we did make it to the state title. Gentlemen, if you can just stand up when I call your name. So our team captain is Chase Lewis, a.k.a. PF Sumo. These are the gamer tags. Samuel Blake, a.k.a. Chrono. Cameron Michaels, a.k.a. Shoddy Guns. Matthew Costa, a.k.a. SW. Nathaniel Neville, a.k.a. Spiffy Koala. Samuel Costa, a.k.a. Vitrix. And the heart of our team, our motivational speaker, Peyton Rigo, a.k.a. The Man. Mr. Tom's our assistant coach. So this is the team that we actually brought into the state finals, and I just wanted to have you guys recognize the members of that team. Okay. Okay. So esports, a new way high school students get involved and be part of a team. So we've read all the headlines. I don't know if you guys have seen them, but there's a lot of great stuff that's happening now in regards to esports. Just a brief history of esports. Esports is a term for organized video game competitions. Competitive video games have existed as long as video games themselves. This picture here is from the 1980s, and this is an Atari Space Invaders competition. It attracted over 10,000 participants, and it was the first major video game competition, and it sowed the seeds for what we're seeing today with esports. In this second slide, you can see that it's students or children of all ages, adults, and in the last slide here is you can actually see how it's roped off for commentators and people to watch. 72% of American teenagers play video games regularly. And on average, those teenagers are spending 8.2 hours per week playing those games. So why esports for the NFHS and NFHS network, and why Play Versus? So the National Federation of State High School Associations and the NFHS network have entered into a partnership with Play Versus to begin the rollout of esports competitions in high schools throughout the country. So Play Versus is an online gaming company. They work directly with the NFHS, and they are bringing esports into all of the state schools. This began in fall of 2018, and the initial rollout was at least 15 states, and regular season competition between schools in an online platform. The schools are now, they're in all 50 states with Play Versus. The esports landscape today is booming. As you can see in this picture up there, that's kind of what the World Championships would look like when you're seeing it from an arena perspective. There's about a global audience of 400 million fans who pack out the arenas. There are pro leagues that mirror the NBA and the NFL. There are team owners of these esports teams, including the Golden State Warriors, the New York Yankees, and yes, the New England Patriots do own an esports team. There's over 50 college-sponsored varsity scholarships for the and the NCAA is also looking into having these competitions similar to the basketball. I'd like to show a quick video on this and then finalize that.
Have you guys seen esports and the E-League? I don't know if that's sports. That's what they're asking if I've seen it.
But I don't know if athlete is the right word that I would go for. You don't break a sweat. I don't consider it a sport.
No, you do.
Watching people play video games isn't like watching people play football. It's like watching people play fantasy football. It is one more step removed from human activity. You understand?
It's video games. It shouldn't be on a sports network. It's video games.
But can it truly be a spectator sport?
It already is. 71 million watched it last year. They reckon it's going to, by 2017, it'll be 145 million people watching it.
They're actually giving college scholarships For
Video gamers?
For video gaming.
You're kidding.
And it's even gone to the point that now the government has acknowledged professional video gamers as athletes.
Same way you watch a football match, you can hear the crowd, everyone's cheering the team on, you make friends, these are people you talk to, you play with online. It's all about community, it's being part of something that you're incredibly passionate about.
Trying to establish vision control and force any skill. Take that ambition! Ambition steals the Elder Dragon! He has away! There's no lines! This is a four-drake Elder Dragon! He lives! Ambition saves the game once again!
All right.
Okay.
Dr. Larkin?
I, yes, Mrs. Palish.
I have
Oh.
a couple of quick questions, but I just have a couple of comments first.
Yeah, before we move
I
to
think he's
that,
done, though.
actually.
I don't think Mr. Cannavale's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll open the floor to public comment in a few minutes. Okay.
From that video, you heard the lady say in 2017 that there'll be over 145 million viewers. They're predicting for the 2020 World Championship that there's going to be 500 million people watching this. In the Super Bowl, the most watched Super Bowl was 98 million people. Today, esports is booming with a global audience of nearly 400 million fans who pack out the arenas, as we already talked about that there. So let's talk about the quick infrastructure here. Students take esports very seriously as a form of entertainment and sport. Play Versus actually built up the whole infrastructure for us to be able to compete statewide. How does it work? Students are able to participate in a 2-week preseason and a regular season that lasts 2 months. Each team playing matches weekly with other schools. The divisions are broken up into 4 conferences. Those 4 conferences advance to a semifinals and then eventually for the state title. Our district is looking to compete again in the game called League of Legends. This is a multiplayer online battle arena. It's also known as a MOBA. The MOBA game are games played between 2 opposing 5-person teams as heroes with unique abilities, strengths, and weaknesses in an effort to destroy their opponent's base. Our district will not be participating in any first-person shooter games. What's needed is a team of 5 students, a faculty member, a computer lab, and internet. I just wanted to show a couple quick pictures of the kids. The boys, yeah. This is the runner-up from the Rhode Island Interscholastic League Facebook page. Them getting ready to compete. And then this is the actual competition, the room that they were in. As you see, Cameron sitting in front of the screen there, he's got a glove on that was given to him by a company to try out, as well as all drinks was sponsored by Pepsi, and this was done at Johnson & Wales. Okay. Any questions?
Okay, before we go any further, I'm just going to ask for a motion to approve the esports.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so I'm going to open the floor to questions and discussion from the committee members. Ms. Palish.
Thank you. So I'm sure as all of the elected officials here can appreciate, we often get comments from certainly Tiverton residents, sometimes neighboring communities. This particular instance, I want to share, I got some feedback from a very unlikely source. I have 2 nephews who, because of mobility limitations that they've experienced since birth, they have been huge gamers, and this platform in particular has been something that they're very familiar with, and it has had a very positive impact on their life. I happened to mention to my sister that, oh, this finally came to Rhode Island. It's been in North Dakota for a while, but it snows and is cold 10 or 12 months. So indoor things tend to get there first. But my one nephew, when my sister just casually mentioned it to him, he called me. He wanted to share with me what a positive impact this has had on his life, from team building to the social aspect of it to he actually met his fiance there. So it was interesting to me, and it was, we get feedback, but to get feedback from that distance was really, unique for me. The second thing that I did I also got a call from a parent yesterday, and that parent was given some misinformation. That parent was, told me that several members of this committee, she was told we're going to shut this down. I just want to make sure that people understand that we're a policy board. We see policy. We have policies. One of the policies is after-school activities come before us, not because we want to shut them down or not even because we want to feel important. We have an oversight responsibility, and one of those roles is to ask the same kind of questions you would as a parent: where, how, what, those kind of things. As overseers, we also ask things about funding and safety, and sometimes it's busing, making sure that there's going to be transportation. So in the 10 years I've been on this board, when anything's been brought to us that's going to enhance the after-school activities and opportunities for our students, I don't think we've ever said no. So I did just want to clear that up, because I did get that conversation. I had that conversation with them yesterday. That being said, I have two quick questions. Dr. Sanchione, the funding, is it going to be, because I did see there's some fees, is it going to be fundraiser driven, or?
Yeah, Mr. Cannavale has a complete plan for that, so I'll let him answer that question.
Yeah, so it's all fundraiser based. We run something called the Super Smash Brothers tournament, which is another video game, and we run that at the school monthly. And each of the students, they chip in $5 to compete, and we're running that monthly, so that's actually covering all of the costs for the esports events.
And because this is sort of coming in the middle of the year, and we had that club, I don't know what to call it, club fair, I guess, with all of the students during senior lounge. How are we gonna, one of the benefits of something like this is there's no cap. You can have as many teams as people that you have participating. So what kind of mechanism are we gonna use to make sure that, our student body now knows, hey, we've got this new activity that everybody can come on board with? I don't know if there's, I think we have a pretty short window, but were we gonna blast something out? I don't know if if Chris had.
Chris is here, but Mr. Cannavale has again addressed that, so I'll let him start, but
Yep.
you want to say something on that? We should go over there.
You want to?
We actually, everything that we're going to be doing in regards to the fundraising and in regards to promoting the league to the teams, to the students, we put up posters in the building welcoming anybody. It's a co-ed sport, which is great, so it doesn't matter if it's a team.
You have them up now, or are you putting them up tomorrow?
We're going to be putting them up tomorrow.
Okay.
And we've designed a bunch of them, and we actually put on them where the #1 team in Rhode Island, in the state, in the world, because we were the #1 team before the championship. So that's kind of one of the things. We put up the rankings and the charts and stuff.
Okay. In Bishop Hendrickson in Massachusetts.
Those are mine. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think you're still #1 in state, because Hendrickson is in Massachusetts, right?
Hendricken.
Hendricken.
Bishop Hendricken.
They're in Rhode Island?
Yeah.
Okay. we could move it, right?
It is the Rhode Island Interscholastic League.
Okay.
We have the
Well,
#1 public school. There you go.
We play soccer, and we get all these Massachusetts
We
people
actually
invading
did
us.
beat Hendricken one game, so we technically, Tiverton beat Hendricken in a sport
Okay.
for one game.
So,
I have one question.
Yes.
What about transportation to tournaments? Is there anything?
Everything is done in the school. The only time that we ever would have to do a transportation is if we do make the state finals. So all the students actually met us at Johnson & Wales, got there on their own at this time.
Which is not unlike we do like mock trial.
a lot of other things.
Yeah, the team is only 5 students that participate are 5 gamers with up to 3 substitutes that would sit there just in case somebody gets scared.
But if you have a lot more participation, you can have as many teams of 5 as we could field, correct?
That's correct, but the when it goes to the championships,
Just one team.
so they take the top 10 schools. So if I have 2 teams running and they're in first and second place, only the first place team actually makes the bracket. The second place team, we take subs from that. And that's to kind of be fair to the other schools.
Okay. Ms. Pavo? Ms. Black, any questions?
No, I think this is
You know
very
all about it?
exciting.
Are you on the team?
No, it's coming on, just checking it all out before we got here.
No, I think it's very exciting. I thank you.
It's exciting, 'cause it's today's world.
Yep. And we always say we want to have every kid that comes through the door be able to excel in whatever they're good at. This is a good example of that. You can play basketball, football, do all that. But if these kids are good at this, I'm so excited they're going to have a venue, and then they can go to the States and win and share in all that fun that high school's all about. It's all about moments, one at a time, and this is one of those moments, so thank you.
I just have one question. So I can't help but notice that a lot of the kids in the videos anyway were boys. Is there any outreach to the girls, or
Yes.
are there any girls that are interested in?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Right now, we do have 1 girl that comes and participates with the club. We did have up to 3 at one time, but right now we do have 1 that comes consistently.
Okay, great. And I believe there was a question from the public. Well, if you can you come up to the podium, please, Ms. Rashley?
Jennifer Jones Rashley. I'm on the budget committee. My concern with gaming is that it's a great esport. However, the parity between men and women, I see. It looks like many gamers here, but making sure that there is equity in the sport for all students is critical at this juncture in our history.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know, I'm gonna get to that. Yep.
We have one more.
Hi, so I don't have a question. My name is Courtney Korn. I'm a parent of a Tiverton middle school student. I wanted to give you some positive aspects, educational and for building the youth's future as far as video gaming goes. As of 2012, the military started using their droid and their drone mechanisms. They're all based off of the PlayStation controllers. The PlayStation controllers look a lot like the Xbox controllers, even though the buttons are different, but this is how all of your unmanned flights and everything else are done through the military. So that is something that's building our youth for the future. Educationally, my oldest is 22. He graduated from URI at 19. At 17, he got a 6-month internship to MIT, and that is where he learned all about what was going on with the military and NASA. So it's not pointless. There's things beyond giving them something positive to do and not being out on the streets and doing this and being able to bond. But my oldest also, at 13, started playing Guitar Hero, and he beat every level, and by the time he was done, he had taught himself how to play a real guitar. So he can play the guitar, the piano, the saxophone, and it was all from video games. So it's pretty cool. It saved
Great.
me a whole lot of money on lessons.
All right. Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve. If there's any other questions from the school committee? And gentlemen, can I have your numbers so you can come and fix my computer, perhaps? All right, so all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before
Yes.
you leave, I believe, Ms. Carvalho, is there recognition being provided by our reps? Yes, so they want to recognize the team, so
Okay.
I believe they...
Great. So,
Oh, thank you. Yes. Thank you.
okay. Okay. Thank you. And Representative Edwards, welcome. Okay. Ah, well,
we have a
you are here. Yeah.
and CTE.
Just fasten your seatbelts. All right, I believe the Budget Committee now has a, yep, I'm getting there, actually. I believe the Budget Committee now has a quorum, so I'm going to invite Mr. Edwards to call his committee into session.
Here.
Yes. Okay, thank you, and again, welcome. So we are up to item 10I, Prevention Coalition Update. Mrs. Allen, there you are.
Hi, I'm Polly Allen. I am the Tiverton Prevention Coalition Coordinator. I'm going to invite some students up here. We would like to make a very short verbal presentation about our recent trip to Washington, D.C. Through the support of our Drugs Free Community Grant. We were able to take 13 Tiverton High School students to Washington last week for a leadership forum. And the students participated in trainings 2 of the 3 days we were there. And on the Wednesday we were there, they were able to meet with Representative Cicilline. And also between the hours of 3 and 3:45 on Wednesday, before the vote, both Senator Reid and Senator Whitehouse spoke to our kids. They must have run for the vote, but they took time out of their day and really listened to what our kids had to say. So I'd like to present these guys to tell you what they learned last week.
Hello, I'm Chana Urego, and I'm a junior with the Tiverton Prevention Coalition. So this year was my 3rd year attending our conference in Washington, D.C. It's called CADCA. So it's basically, I think this year it was a 4,000 person conference. It was about 3,500 adults and 500 youth from all 50 states and other countries as well. Basically, we flew down Monday after school, and when we woke up Tuesday morning, we attended a couple of conferences, which are separated. The youth separate from the adults, so that way, personally, I think all of my friends would agree that I think that when we stepped off and we were taught by college students and high school students about skills that we needed, it really resonates more. And so we had a couple of trainings on the dangers of powdered alcohol, on vaping, on some leadership skills, and all of that helped us, I think, prepare for the following day when we attended Capitol Hill to meet with Representative Cicilline, Senator Whitehouse, and Senator Reid. And we basically sat down with them, depending on the time slots, sat, stand, found them wherever they were, and spoke to them about what we were seeing in our communities. So basically we kind of covered about how our coalition has been taking a lot of work with mental health, substance abuse, tobacco, vaping, and all the things that we see not only in our schools but in our community. And I think that it was just such a powerful moment for us to be able to sit there and talk to these people who help shape our future and shape the safety of my school and like the future of my peers, and be able to tell them that this is what I see going on and this is what we're doing to combat it and this is what other schools are doing and this is what we learned and how we want to take all of that and run with it kind of and feed off of what Middletown does and what a town from El Paso, Texas does, and use all of that information and kind of just amplify what the good things we already have going to help create an even more positive effect on our entire community. And then the following day we did some more trainings, we met more students from all over the country, and it was just so beneficial to hear that it's awful, but to hear that other kids are going through the same things that we are and how they had different ideas to combat what we were going through. And it was just so helpful to hear other people's ideas in ways that we can work together, despite the fact that we're miles and miles away, to fight these same issues that are facing us nationally and globally.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that it was a great opportunity for all of us to be able to go and just meet other kids across the country and who share the same passion and helping the youth get off of drugs and educating even the youngers on not starting them. So I say we learned a lot from all sorts of other kids and schools, and there was plenty of different people there who had a lot more knowledge than us and gave us some great tools and tips to help educate and provide future youth for not doing drugs. So, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, I guess?
Is that it? Any questions from the committee or public?
Who have the most kids there? What state?
I'd say Rhode Island.
That's right, yay.
Really?
There were like 500 kids, but for our state size, we had about 30 to 35, I'd say, which in past years, I think the first year I went, we had maybe 12, and then last year about 20. So the number's definitely growing, and the numbers from Tiverton has been the biggest in Rhode Island consistently.
Wow.
Very good.
Okay, great. All right, well done. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we are up to item 10C, acceptance of legislative grant from Representative John G. Edwards.
Yes, you're gonna have to wait for that. Sitting in my bureau.
So now you know why you're here. Now we know why you're not here.
Mrs. Black called me this morning to remind me to come here, and I left the check.
I still forgot.
Okay.
I will drop it off.
We can go get it.
Uh,
I'll go get it.
No, actually, I can drop it off. Checks are timed.
yeah,
We're coming up pretty close on this one.
okay.
We'll drop it off to all of the administration.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We love you anyway. Okay. But sincerely, thank you very much for your continued, con- right, for your continued support of the district. And then that brings us up to 10D, Spotlight on Success, the state wrestling champion, Miss Graven. The or the one or more?
Unfortunately, our state wrestling champion is not here. However, his mom is Courtney Quinn's. He's wrestling, exactly. So she will be accepting on his behalf. Elijah Wood is a 6th grade student, and because we don't have a wrestling team, he wrestles with the Situate Middle School. And Courtney, I'd rather have you represent your son because I think you do a really nice job in the email that you sent.
I didn't know he could come, or else I would have,
Yes, absolutely.
taken him out of wrestling, but the state championships are coming up. Hi, so I'm Courtney, again. Hello, hi, hi. Eli wrestles as an independent since the Tiverton school system does not have a wrestling team. He's absolutely incredible. He is a 4-time national champion in wrestling, 3-time judo national champion at 11, almost 12 years old. And because of his size, a little on the fluffy side, and, you know, pretty tall, he has to constantly go against 8th and 9th graders that are 15 and 16 years old and probably drove themselves with mustaches, and they're built better than my husband. So, you know, I mean, the odds have constantly been stacked against him. But so he wrestles for the Situate Middle School varsity team, and he is in the 131-pound bracket, and he took the 2nd place for the state of Rhode Island school division. He was your #1 seed in the state, and he's your first ever Tiverton wrestling champion. You have your first state wrestling champion title ever in the history of Tiverton. So Situate does not get his points, Tiverton does. If at some point we can consider possibly putting together a wrestling team, I already have Excel spreadsheets and budgets worked out where the school doesn't have to pay for anything. I have 2 nationally certified wrestling coaches.
Do you know Mr. Alves?
I don't. So
Big wrestler in school.
We did have
He
wrestling.
teaches over at the middle school.
We had a wrestling.
I
We used to have one.
We had a wrestling. Yes.
we need
did
to get
have
that back on because, you know, you're talking about new teams and everything else. These are a group of kids and they work together as a team. Basketball teams, you know, hockey teams, tennis teams. When you're a wrestler, it's like being a swimmer. It's one-on-one. You have no one, if you're tired, to help you up. You have no one to give you that pat on that back. It's one mat, two children, and one person comes off with more points than the other. Let's just put it like that. And my son's been wrestling since he was 7. He has an extreme passion for it. It's given him extreme confidence. It's given him, he speaks better to adults than he does children. He's on the same level. I mean, he's so confident, he's strong, he has the heart of a lion. If anyone knows him, he's compassionate, he's nice, he's sweet, he's brilliant, he still keeps high honors. So it's just a wonderful sport, but that's what the town of Tiverton has achieved. And I thought you guys should know that.
Thank you.
And sincere congratulations to your son.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we actually have a we have a certificate for him. So come on up.
We are going to get it. We are going to get it. That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you guys.
So,
Thank you very much.
congratulations.
Thank you. I will let him know.
Thank
Thank
you. Okay, great. And we are on item 10D, first place Patriots Pen Essay Contest.
Yes, and Nora Winslow is in our audience. Nora, can you come up, please?
My goodness.
So Nora is the state winner of the Tiverton Veterans Foreign Wars Post 5392 essay, Patriot Pen Essay Contest winner. Nora's going to read her essay to you, and the theme of the essay this year was what makes America great. How's that?
Not again.
Hi, Nora. Welcome.
Hi. What makes our country great to live in? In my opinion, we have 4 assets that make America great. As a country, we are fair, stable, independent, and brave. These 4 reasons make America an amazing country. Firstly, being fair is necessary to having a great country or nation. In the U.S., our justice system is fair, and it makes it so that it isn't chaos. Our justice system is great at keeping our citizens safe and making sure people get what they deserve. If someone committed a small crime, they would get a punishment they deserve. If someone is in danger, they can get help if needed. Although we are a free country, we have to have rules to keep our country civilized. Secondly, America is very stable. Being stable is important for everything in our country. Being stable meaning having a strong economy and having budgets for necessary things. By having budgets, we have money for good schools, shelters, military, and other good services. A strong economy allows Americans to not live in poverty. By having a stable country, we're able to provide some of the best living conditions. Next, America's independence is one of its best qualities. By being independent, we are free and have many rights. By being free, we get to choose our leaders and get to make our own decisions. America is a free country as well, which means we have the rights that other countries might not have. For example, we have freedom of speech, religion, and we have equality and many more rights. The rights we have make America a great country because not all people are as lucky as we are. Lastly, we are a brave country. We have an amazing military that risks their lives for the sake of our country. Our military keeps us safe and allows us to live comfortably. Although we are peaceful, if we need to fight, we will. Being safe and brave makes our country great. In conclusion, America is a great country because as a nation we worked together to become a fair, stable, independent, and brave country.
Nora, how old are you?
11.
Wow, it's impressive. Congratulations, Nora.
Okay, yeah. So very well said. Ms. Winslow, please come up and accept our certificate of commendation. Thank you. Congratulations. All right. So, now that we've had all the fun and games, we're up to 10E, special education budget presentation. And one of the reasons why we invited our colleagues on the town council and the budget committee was to have an opportunity to speak with Mrs. Krager and, of course, the delegation. Speak with Mrs. Krager as we present our special education budget. So, Dr. Sanchioni, Ms. Krager, take it away.
Right.
Still fun and games.
Till somebody loses an eye.
It's not going to happen. So I was here last year, right about this time, budget time, and it seems like it wasn't a year ago. It goes by so quickly, but I'm happy to be back. Okay, good. So I'm just going to take you through the presentation I have, certainly ask questions throughout the presentation or after the presentation. When we look at developing the budget, we always start out with our guiding principles or goals. Of course, one of the first ones we look at is the law. We want to make sure and we provide our students with a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. And that is requiring special education services for people who qualify, kids who qualify 3 to 22. Last year when I was here, if you recall, that said 3 to 21, but that has now increased to 22. So we are keeping young adults receiving services through their IEP, if necessary, until age 22. We certainly want to support the district's programming and efforts through special education services and programs. So we do try to align what we do for our special education students with what the district is doing. We also want to make sure that we are including the social emotional needs of students, and that's just not of students with special needs. That's social emotional needs of all of our students in Tiverton. We want to continue to close the gap, make sure we're mainstreaming our special education programs, and then provide a continuum of services from pre-K, age 3, to 12, and then transition services for 18 to 22. And we want to build and maintain effective partnerships with families. Some of the known factors, after we look at those guiding principles, we have, of course, our personnel and contract commitments. We have district figures that we look at, enrollment of both regular ed students and students with special needs. We have state and federal mandates, and we do get some revenue from tuition that we'll review in this presentation. So some of the considerations, our identified population in Tiverton of students with special needs is about 17% of the population. So we're currently servicing 306 students, and that's of 12/1/2019. There are more intensive needs as we are servicing students, some of them including the social emotional needs that I just talked about, as well as students with developmental delays. Students with developmental delays are kids between the age of 3 and 9 who have some delays in cognitive functioning, adaptive functioning, communication, even some academic functioning. But they're still pretty young, and they're not, we can't categorize them into a special ed category yet. So there is this developmental delay category where we can service kids, and what we want to do during that age, 3 to 9, see if we can close those gaps during that time before they turn 10. We do have a request for staffing of 1 special education teacher at Tiverton Middle School, as well as 3 teacher assistants. And I'm going to talk about that when we talk about some of our specialized programming, because we're going to be implementing a new program at Tiverton Middle School. Regional staffing request is a .4 regional school psychologist that will actually support that Tiverton Middle School program, and then overall a part-time clinical behavior supervisor. And that is to help us work with students in district who have some more clinical level of needs. We have students that have behavioral challenges and students with some mental health challenges that really need more clinical supports. So we're going to try and bring that more in-house so we can keep our students in district. This one. There we go. So we'll talk a little bit about our students in Tiverton. When we look at Tiverton's counts by disabilities, there's actually 14 different disability categories. You don't see 14 here, and if you were to add up all those numbers, you would not get 306 students. So what happens is when there's a category of students that are 10 students or lower, it's actually some identifiable information, so we can't show that to the public. But we can show you the areas, the categories that the majority of our students fall into. So I included a 3-year average there, and you can see how some of them, increase and then decrease. But we do have that, like I said, increase in developmental delay. And then the other health impaired and emotionally disturbed kind of cover that social emotional needs.
Sarah, before you move on, can I just ask you one quick question?
Sure.
Is there any overlap of the same students within these categories?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
And just to clarify the bar graph, it's a little, so the far left is our current year.
That's correct.
The middle is last year, and
Yep.
the red is 2 years ago.
Correct.
And these look more or less stable, more or less.
They are. And you can see that overall numbers are pretty stable too. All right, what special education services look like in Tiverton Public Schools? And I just wanted to, when I was getting this presentation together, just remind us what actually special education is. It's not a placement. It is a service. It's instruction that's specially designed to meet the unique needs of children who require a change in content or methodology of what's happening in our core curriculum. Students with special education services require a free, appropriate public education, and that looks different for each student. And the IEP is what determines what the student needs. That's kind of the that shows what's different for each child. So even a child who is in learning, categorized under learning disability in that previous slide, they don't get the same services because their disability impacts them in a different way. Our continuum.
Sarah, can I just make one point about that slide too that I think is important to understand?
Sure.
That has to be in the least restrictive environment consistent with the IEP and the child's developmental status.
That's correct. So LRE, or least restrictive environment. So we always start with least restrictive environment in the regular classroom. And if we have data that shows that the student's really not making progress in that setting, then we may add some more of these continuum levels of services and try and start out with consultation, which is the least restrictive environment. And then going up to related services, so that's services like speech and language, maybe an occupational therapist or speech therapist, providing some services for students. The majority of our students are receiving their specialized instruction in the regular classroom. So we will have a special education teacher in an English class or a literacy class in the elementary level, same with a math class or an algebra class at the high school. So, and they set up their classroom environment so the special education teacher can work with small groups or the regular education teacher can work with small groups, but again, can change that content and methodology to meet the IEP needs. Our next one is special education instruction outside the regular classroom. And this might be because a student is distracted in the classroom and can really be more available to receive the special education instruction in a smaller group setting. And I put these in boxes, but oftentimes kids are kind of in between those two, always trying to go back to that least restrictive environment. There are students where data supports that they require a more intensive setting, and sometimes we have to look for an out-of-district placement for that. And those students really require some sort of perhaps clinical level of service or even a medical level of service. So we do look at out-of-district placements for students who require that. And then finally, there are sometimes hospital or homebound instruction. Some of the school-based services that happen in the schools for, again, 3 to 22, we start out with evaluations. So you see a list there of evaluations when we are looking at a student who may be eligible under one of those categories. We conduct a plethora of evaluations to make sure we have all of the data to determine whether a child's eligible for services. In addition, after we do the evaluations and a child is eligible, you see all the services that can be placed in an IEP. So when I say an IEP is really unique, those are all the different sort of services that can be placed in an IEP. In addition to those services, kids who are 18 to 22 or young adults who are 18 to 22 also get some of the more vocational and integrated and supporting work environment. These are services for students with IEPs. I just want to say that school psychologists, social workers, speech and language pathologists, OTs, PTs, work with all students. They don't just work with students with IEPs. If a student is in need of any sort of consultation or need to work with a school psychologist or social worker because they're going through something difficult, all those staff work with all kids, not just students with special needs. Okay. Take off my glasses now. So this is a really interesting chart, and Dr. Sanchioni had asked me to put this in. I'm not sure if it was a recommendation from someone on the school committee, but if it was, I'm glad that you thank you for putting this in, because this is really interesting. So we talk about the out-of-district placements, students that require that level of supports, and if you look in the last 5 years, we really haven't had a big change in numbers of students requiring that level of support. But what has changed is the needs of the students. So we often want to look at numbers when we're talking about education and special education, but we have to look at needs of students when it comes to special education as well. So although the numbers stay the same, and of course there's a little bit of an increase, like a 2% increase each year for an out-of-district placement, but we are really looking at students and placing students who have significant needs where they might be in an out-of-district placement and even require a one-to-one, or a setting that has a low student and staff ratio to meet their needs. So I think that is something that we see, we feel in our schools. I'm looking at the principals, but I think this is a pretty telling slide about what our needs look like in Tiverton. So thank you, Dr. Larkin.
Can you just go back to that for a minute? So
you have, yep.
The total numbers of students, and I'm trying to get my thing. So the bar graph, we're going from, I can't see what the.
It's in the bar.
42 and 18 and 39 and 19.
Oh, that, which one?
So I was just looking at the 38, 36, okay. So the total number of students has essentially stayed stable.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, it's just the needs.
Isn't it also, we've had this discussion before, and this is part of the reason we want the reps here. We really have no control over if an out-of-district placement increases their tuition by 5%. I mean, we have to pay what they tell us we have to pay, so we have no control. I want to say, I was going to say limited, but it's not even limited. It's, we have no control, and I think that's part of, and I'm sure you've heard it, from other, members from other districts as well, that you know, these are services we want to give, these are services we need to give, but we have absolutely no control over a 5%, a 6% increase from an out-of-district provider. And when we're capped at 4%, and the community is capped at 4%, that really, as you can see, I mean, $1 million swing, that really starts to be quite burdensome. And I don't know how they do it in other states, but that's something we've talked about a lot, that having some sort of control of that allowable increase if you're going to be a service provider for Rhode Island Public School.
We've been into that question before. The problem that we have is we don't have the ability to limit what they can charge and what they can't charge, especially being out of state. We just don't have the ability to do that.
And, just for the council and the budget committee, we get state aid, but it's very limited what we get for, the state aid that we get for our special education doesn't even begin to cover. Yeah. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion at the state level over the funding formula and trying to increase the funding.
That's being discussed now.
And are you taking into consideration the out-of-placement costs? They are, okay.
And
the entire budget is before us right now. It'll be
Okay.
months before we get through it all.
Okay. Yeah.
Most of the students' needs we can meet in Rhode Island. We certainly look there first because we have to transport kids to these out-of-district placements. We don't want them on buses for a long time. So we do look at Rhode Island first. And to be honest with you, most of our students' needs can be met in a Rhode Island out-of-district placement, but there are some times where we have to look into Massachusetts.
Sarah?
But they're still required to work under all of our Rhode Island, if it's Common Core or alternate assessment, sort of Rhode Island criteria.
So Sarah, and maybe Peter, you can address this, or Amy, knowing those costs also can be problematic because we have built our budgets and the voters have voted on a budget, and yet we may not get the bill until June, July, or even the IEP is not written until later in a school year. So that also can drive part of the problem of trying to anticipate what the needs are. I know it has been said, and we always go home and pray that it won't happen, that a family could theoretically move into town with 6 children who all have $1 million IEPs, theoretically. I don't think it's ever happened, but
It's happened.
But it has happened.
It's happened.
A $6 million IEP?
Not in our town, but
Not in Tiverton?
in one of our towns.
Okay. Well, that's why we will keep on praying that that doesn't happen. But the point is that just sort of highlights the unpredictability of it.
If I could ask Amy Roderick a question, and I don't know if you have this at hand, so if you don't, just tell me. Sarah, the slide you gave us for out-of-district placements, 2.5 million in last year's school year, ending in
19,
June.
yeah.
Do we have numbers estimated for school year ending 2020 and even out to 21?
We do. We have estimated for this year, and we do have a projected for 2021.
Do you know what they are?
We can share that with you. I can get that information. That's correct.
That's correct.
Yep, that's a good question.
Yes.
That's in addition to the tuition.
You just did that presentation.
Depends on where it is, I think.
For transportation?
What is transportation?
Yeah.
Do we have that number, Peter?
No, yeah, we just did that presentation with
Yeah.
special ed.
Special education transportation costs out of district.
Is it 132?
No, give us the number.
Is it 132?
Well, that's for 21.
Right, that's
Is the
fine.
132.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in
So-
2021, Amy, it's 132,000.
Yep.
Now, we do get some Medicaid reimbursement for these services as well, which, we're utilizing some of those dollars when we looking at the budget. So there are some Medicaid funds that come back for these services.
Question on the Medicaid reimbursements. Is that contingent upon the caregivers and parents of the students to give you information in order for us to collect those Medicaid reimbursements?
It is contingent on parents allowing us to do that.
Mhm.
And then we have our service providers fill out a log. So they're based on the IEP. So it's whatever they're servicing the students, they fill out that log, and then we get the reimbursement based on that.
Do a high percentage of our parents give you that permission?
I would say 95% of parents allow for that.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's what I was hoping to hear.
Yes. And we work with parents who are not comfortable with that, trying to provide them with more information to make them comfortable with that.
I appreciate that. It
Okay.
winds up being dollars and cents. So.
Yep, yep.
Mrs. Black?
Yes, Representative Edwards, you remember quite a while ago when you were here and we brought this same issue to you. And then the state said they would give us money for they call it high-cost special ed, remember? That's what they were going to do. So we were very hopeful about that until we saw the number, because Tiverton got $71,000, like a little over $71,000 last year. So when you're hearing these numbers, it doesn't do it. So that's why we invited you here, and we know you've got everybody else to think about in your whole budget, but you know that our top priority is to take care of these children and give them everything they need, absolutely. That's our first thing that we have to say.
It's very difficult because when you look at all the cities and towns that have all these significant needs, it adds up.
Yep, it's true.
So it just goes to general aid. So we just use this as state aid as part of our operating.
Yeah, we were at not our last meeting, but I think the meeting before, even though our census hasn't changed the number of students, depending upon which UCOA account we're looking at, we've seen either a 200% increase or an 800% increase. It's simply unsustainable, those kind of percentage increases. And I'm not sure what the answer is, but certainly I know you guys, you're looking at it this year and you're looking at it hard. Because, like you said, Dennis, we're not the only district, but 200% increase, 800% increase, and you're talking about a $5 million expense. That's really,
That's not sustainable.
yeah, it's just not sustainable. Yeah.
If I could clarify one point, though, at the end of the year, so the 800% increase isn't. That's what it looks like in the information that I've presented to you. At the end of the year, that total will get allocated out to the special service object
Right.
codes. So the increase isn't 800%, but we don't get that allocation from the region until the end of the year. So I just want to make sure everyone knows.
So when I was looking at the
Actuals for-
comparables, did the actuals and last year's budget have that explosion already in it?
They had it in it, but 20 and 21 do not, because we don't know what they are.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's helpful.
Thank you. No.
Well, I guess
No.
we have to go back and look at it now, because what Amy's telling me is we're comparing different buckets. So we'll have to go back and, is there any way for us?
It's not 200%.
Let me ask that.
Special education budget, you'll see at the end of my presentation, it's 3.2% increase.
For this year.
For this year.
But our out-of-district
Out-of-district
placements
is,
are roughly
Are-
25,
Right.
30%.
Yeah.
That's not year over year for the last 5 years, but when you look at 2014, 2015 to now 2018, 2019, it's an approximately $900,000 increase, which is something like 70%. Have I got that right?
900,000 over 5 years?
Over the course of 5 years, it's roughly $900,000
Without transportation.
without transportation. And that represents, of that 1.6 million or 1.7 million, it's not 70%. It's probably more like 55%, 55, 60%.
So what is it after the Medicaid reimbursement?
Well, the district decides to use their Medicaid reimbursement how they want to. They can use it for out-of-district placements, or they could use it for something else, so.
Last year, we used it because we had unanticipated costs of 1.5 million.
In special ed.
Increase in special
Right.
ed, and
Right.
we used
We applied to special ed.
almost our entire Medicaid to offset that cost.
So that fund did build over the course of about 10 years because we did not allocate it to.
We did
on
a little bit.
A little bit, right,
200
right,
a
right.
year, 300
So,
a year.
so it basically built a buffer of, I want to say 1.7 million after 10 years. So you're allocating to that fund $150,000 a year or so. So that helped smooth out the bumps in the funding over the last 5 years. As of last year, though, we've kind of depleted that reserve that built with, was held with the region, but it's essentially gone.
You mentioned earlier that 17% of your student population is in this identified population. How does that compare in the region, and how does it compare to the rest of the state?
The state is about 15 to 16%. Our other districts are, Middletown is 17% as well.
Are we higher or lower in the region?
For the three towns, you guys are the same as Middletown. Yeah.
And
Little Compton is so small. It's so small.
They're only K through 8.
Right.
And they're only K through 8, so it's hard to apples to apples
Yeah.
compare. So Amy, when are we going to be able to look at an apples to apples comparison for 18, 19, 20, and 21?
At the next meeting, the 25th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the budget as we get through just a few more things. I just wanted to go over special education department. So you'll see there that the three towns do share services. That's the really essence of the region, is that we can share some services for all three towns. Some of the services we share are some of the folks right there. So administrators of special education, I won't read that whole list. But one thing I like about this shared service model is really in our people. So we have school psychologists, social workers, and speech and language pathologists. Tiverton may need 3 of each of those if they were an independent special ed department. Because we have 2 other towns to look at, we hire a few more. What's so great about that is now that we hire school psychologists, almost 6 of them, we're hiring them with different expertise. So we have 6 psychologists that have a different expertise. One has more expertise in working with students with autism. One has more expertise working with students or evaluating students with dyslexia, or working with students with social emotional behavior problems. And even though we have an assigned school psychologist at Fort Barton, we can use any one of those 6 school psychologists to come and consult or do evaluations. Same thing with social workers and speech and language pathologists. So that really is a benefit, where if we didn't have that, we'd have to go out and pay for that evaluation to be done. So that's just an example of a shared service and how it's beneficial. District special education personnel in Tiverton, right now we have 19.3. We're looking at adding that 1 teacher that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, special education teacher assistants, 39.6, and then we're going to add those 3 to make it 42.6. Again, shared service model. We have a number of specialized regional programs, and you'll see that these are located in all of our schools, in all of our districts. However, students from Tiverton, Little Compton, or Middletown can go to any one of those programs. And again, we try to specialize them a little bit based on disability and needs. You'll see there the new regional middle school program. So what we have currently now, if you're familiar with the middle school at all, we have built a nice partnership program with Bradley School about 4 or 5 years ago now. And they provide a teacher and some behavior specialists, and then work with the building, the teachers and the special ed coordinator and the middle school principal. We have gotten to know that program well. We have some new staff. We want to hire some new staff where we feel that we can provide that program and services on our own. That is, even though it's in our school, it is considered an out-of-district placement. So we're going to bring that on. So we are not going to be paying the out-of-district cost. We will, of course, be paying for the teacher and teacher assistants, but you're going to see that that is going to save us some money in the next few slides without interfering with service.
Can you tell me how many will be brought back in?
So these students are already there. It's a Bradley program. They're already at Tiverton Middle School.
So this program won't be bringing anybody back, it'll just be preventing us from sending future.
Well, it could bring kids back, used as a step-down program, coming back from an out-of-district and going kind of to the next least restrictive service. The other nice things about some of these regional programs is we have other districts, because they're so specialized, we have other districts tuitioning students in. So it is some revenue that we're getting, particularly in our Project Search program that we have at Newport Hospital. I've gotten 3 referrals already for next year from other towns outside of the region. Our transition program, 18 to 22, we've had some neighboring districts already come and check it out and are interested in sending students here too.
So how is that revenue shared by the 3 school districts? Does it just reduce our
Exactly.
fee?
You got it. Yep. And there is another slide that goes over that. Okay. So this slide I tried to break down how it benefits us, again, service-wise, I think, kind of, first and foremost. We want to make sure we're servicing the kids as outlined in their IEPs, but how it benefits us financially, too, when we have these regionalized programs in our schools. So you had that list prior. I only put 3 on here just as an example. So we started our Transition Academy. When we started that, we needed a teacher and a teacher assistant, and then we do contract with some job coaches because, again, this is for students 18 to 22. When we looked at the total cost of that, it would have been, or it is, $239,000, it's $631. Because it's a regional program, Tiverton only has a 43% share, the 43% of the regional costs. So that's $103,000. We will have we anticipate having 4 students from Tiverton attend the Transition Academy next year. For that same level of service, academy supports, transitional supports, it would have costed Tiverton about $38,250 to send the student to that out-of-district placement, which is $153,000. So just in that, there's a saving of $49,000. And then if you move down to those other 2 programs, we are implementing the Regional Specialized Program at Tiverton Middle School with a teacher and 3 TAs. Total is $230,000. Tiverton shares $98,000. We anticipate 8 students being in that program. So right now, at that Bradley Partnership Program, we are spending $50,000 plus on a student, which is $403,000. So that's going to save us $305,000 by bringing that service in-house. And then you can see the same thing. BSP is a behavior support program. Students in kindergarten to grade 1. Again, your share is $100,000 of the total cost. If we were to send those students out of district to receive that service, it would have been $283, so there's $182 savings. So it is really, just great, beneficial in all ways. Again, service and financially. And we
Sarah.
get to do that because we're part of the region. We get to, it's like that economy of scale. You can't really do that with 3 kids or 2 kids, but you can do it with 8, 10, or 12 students and really make it worthwhile.
Because when you do that, when you bring that in-house, those are fixed costs. So what happens if instead of 4 students, you now only have 1 student?
And that could change year to year.
And it does. We've seen
Right,
our
exactly.
usage of different programs swing wildly depending upon
Yep.
what the needs are, who lives here, who doesn't live here.
But we always have students coming up. Like the Transition Academy is for 18 to 22. So that number is for next year. We'll have some kids coming up the year after that, so it might look like 8 next year. So that will ebb and flow, but we have not had years where it didn't make sense for us financially not to have this. I had a meeting at the Transition Academy today. I'll just put this in, for a student from Tiverton, and this is our first year doing the Transition Academy. And when we described the program to parents last year, they couldn't go see it because it wasn't yet running. So we had a meeting today, and the parent from Tiverton was so grateful to the team and all of the teachers and job coaches. She had tears in her eyes, and she said, I'm so glad this has made such a difference for our family, rather than having him go to where he would have gone if we didn't have this program. And I said to her, thank you for trusting us, because I know we didn't have anything to show you. She said, well, you promised me you'd have the right team together. She said, but I never knew it would have been this team. So it was really just, feel good that we were able to do that for a family. Just a little anecdotal. So budget summary, why we're all here. I just wanted to make sure we break out those regional services, again, those shared services. So all of those positions there that are shared services. I did include 2 extended school year programming. That wasn't in my previous slide, but that is a shared service too for students who need services over the summer months. Other shared services are contracted or purchased services. I included some there that you can see: OT, PT, vocational services or job coaches, behavior specialists. And then another shared service for those regionalized programs would be any curriculum materials, testing materials, or adaptive materials. The revenue we receive from tuition, I included those revenue streams there. So in administration claiming, also part of Medicaid. Our preschool tuition, if you look back at the slide with all of our regional specialized preschool programs, you can see where we have those. We do get revenue from peers because it is an integrated preschool program, so we have students with special needs along with peer models. Our Project Search tuition revenue, right now we have 2 in this budget, but we actually just got another referral from another town, so that could increase. So the total revenue is $89,884. Tiverton gets that percentage of the regional cost, and that comes off their payment.
Sarah, just before you go, we're more than happy to share these slides with you. We'll send them to Mr. Edwards and whoever else
Yes,
would
I
like
can
them.
have 'em.
Okay.
So this is,
Absolutely. No.
No,
Yeah.
that would be good.
Well, and when Sarah's done, I do have a question for both of you, so.
so I started here just looking at the total regional budget. And this is really high level, and then it breaks it down. So high level, we're looking at the salary and benefits of our staff, contracted and purchased services, and supply services that I just went over in some previous slides. So again, that's really high level. And then let's just break it down for what it looks like for Tiverton. So that total there of $13,290,000 is what we start with. The Tiverton share of that is 41.5% of our total budget. So it's $5,515,000. And then we reduce that by the anticipated revenue. And then we also reduce it by what Tiverton pays on their local payroll, because they're paying the teachers and special ed teacher assistants. So for Tiverton, the district share to the region is $1,655,000. I then just included, so you kind of get an overall picture, that's their payment to the region. They do have that local payroll, which I included back in there, and then just added that up to that $5,426,000, which is an increase of 3.2%. This does not include, Deb, like someone said, that out-of-district placement costs.
Or the transportation.
Or transportation.
And I think a couple of the budget committee members asked this last year, so just to reiterate, that payroll's paid on our contract. So Middletown pays based on their contract, we pay based on our contract.
And just another way of thinking about that, so $5.4 million is our in-district, in-region special education costs. You have to add another 2.7 or so million dollars to come up with our total special education bill.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
ODP, transportation.
Well, I added the 0.7.
Transportation is shared, or is it by the town?
By the town, I think.
By the town.
Is there any way to join up to break those costs down?
You know, we did. We've looked at that. That's actually, that's how it's been in the past. When we are always looking at this formula to making sure it is the most fiscally responsible formula. That is one area that was a shared service, but it didn't really make sense for, I'm going to just use this as an example, Tiverton and Little Compton to pay for, if Middletown had 15 kids going, Tiverton had 6 and Little Compton had 1, for an example, and that could be any town looking at it differently. So we really put that back on the towns because it's not a shared service. It's a Tiverton student going to an out-of-district placement.
Do you know how many buses we need on a daily basis? Shift kids around, like on average?
Yeah, so that is done through statewide. And when statewide makes their bus routes, they actually pick up kids possibly from like East Providence, Bristol Warren, Tiverton, and then bring them to placement in Portsmouth. So I don't know exactly how many buses, and to be honest with you, Mike, it changes often too. Even there might be kids on 1 month bill, they were all on a big regular sized bus, and then we get the bill next month and they're on a van. So those transportation costs are really hard to predict, and it's kind of based on what statewide is doing at the time.
How many different areas are we going to? So you mentioned Portsmouth. Where else in the state are we currently transporting to?
I can get you those exact different areas, but off the top of my head, there could be places like Providence, Pawtucket, South County. That's outside special education. That's a whole nother section of students who are DCYF placed. Yes. There's a whole process called best interest determination of a child. The thought behind that is they don't want a child going from school district to school district to school district when they're going from different foster homes or group homes.
I understand that process. I don't understand why it's not the district that they come out of.
It is.
So they're placed here, but they need to stay in their.
Yes, so if we look at it from, we don't do that, but look at it from a Tiverton student who was in Tiverton and was here for a few years, it's DCYF placed in Burrillville. We have that best interest determination, and it's determined that it's in the child's best interest to remain in school in Tiverton. That is when Tiverton picks up the transportation. If it was Pawtucket to Tiverton, Pawtucket would pick that up.
So it's actually students that originated in our district that we're
Yeah.
bringing back.
Still
It's not, they.
Right. And it's foster
No, I
place,
get,
it's foster,
I understand all that. I was just
Yeah.
wondering where the sort of,
And those are
where
costs
the,
are
where the cost gets incurred.
incredibly unpredictable, I would think.
they are, because they do move, students unfortunately do move around, but the, when we look at that, reunification is often where the students are gonna end up back in the local district,
Right.
so.
Were you all set, Sarah, or did you have more?
I do have just one more, sorry. One more? Yes. So this is just historical annual assessment. As I think we're talking about how much increase and decrease is it? You know, when I look at this, it really is. We've stayed pretty solid with, you know, increases here and there or decreases depending on the year. This decrease looks pretty significant for Tiverton's payment or assessment, and that is for a few reasons, or a couple reasons. When the town takes on one of those specialized programs, they actually get a benefit to the regional payment by picking up the teacher and the 3 teacher assistants.
So the offset's in our operating budget for salaries.
Right.
There's no decrease.
This
That money
slide-
is
It's just
in salaries.
somewhere else.
Right. This slide is in-district, in-region costs, not the
Yes,
out-of-district
yes,
placements.
yeah.
So, Peter, because if I was sitting here, I'd be asking this question. So if
You are
this has
sitting here.
been pretty stable, well, I am sitting here, but I'm just saying, if I wasn't up here, I didn't know the answer. So if this has been pretty stable, what's the issue? Why are we in the position that we're in Tiverton?
Why are we running such a high deficit for it? Well, it was the earlier slides where you saw the drastic increases in out-of-district placements and the cost of those out-of-district placements, the corresponding transportation that goes with that, and also the internal programs through the region here also has an increase to it. You just don't see it because we've absorbed it in our operating budget. So all 3 of them are going up, 3, 4, 5, 7% annually.
And at that same time, our budget was maybe going up 6.6%, 0%, 1%.
Right.
Okay.
That's why the Medicaid account was drained.
Exactly. I just want that to be clear,
Yep.
that, you know, knowing that, you know, some of these things are going up 5%, 7%, and we saw it coming, and you're not, we weren't really, I guess maybe we were hoping that the trend would reverse, but, no,
Well, some of the trends
Not in
did
special
reverse and then
education.
went back up.
yeah.
I think it's worth pointing out, some of that trend, we did bring a lot of special education costs down, if you look over 10 years, or maybe even 15, and some of those have rebounded,
Right.
so. Sorry. Yeah, so I was just gonna try and keep a little bit of order here. So, Sarah, thank you very much. You're finished with your presentation,
I am.
correct?
Thank
Right.
you.
So now I'd like to open up the floor to questions from the Budget Committee and Town Council.
Or reps.
Representatives, yes, sorry. Guys.
Yes. We do, we look at that. That's why that list of those, of our regional specialized program, that grows every year. When I first started as a director, I think we had 6 or 7 regionalized programs, so we are always looking at that. And yes, when we see that there's 6 or 7 or 8 kids kind of receiving the same service around the same age, we would definitely say, well, let's look at bringing that program to district. And that's what we did with the Tiverton Middle School program. Yeah.
So Sarah, those 8 kids, I just want to be clear, because a question we get asked a lot is, well, now that Portsmouth is gone, well, how can you really have economies of scale? You essentially have 2 districts. But those 8 kids, those are spread across the district. So it's not, you know, if we had just 4 of those, we would have to have that entire program and sustain it and pay for those costs. just Tiverton, where it's a regional program, we're able to have as many kids, service as many kids as we can and share that cost.
Exactly.
Yes?
Most of our regionalized programs could not sustain with just one of the districts. And the district you just mentioned, Portsmouth, they are actually looking at tuitioning some students into these regionalized programs next year.
Bring them on.
Right? Exactly.
Sarah, how come Newport has never opted into the Newport County Special Education?
Yeah, they never,
Is there a
I know.
reason why, how have they sustained on their own? Is there any, have they ever been asked to think about it again?
We,
They're on their own.
every time they have a special ed director's opening, we always reach out to them to consider coming into the region. They have not done that yet, but they're looking at regionalizing anyway. So,
They want to regionalize so bad in terms of the high school.
right.
Why not come back to region?
So I often,
special ed?
right, I often say, why don't you try it first with special education and see how it works for you, and then look at the whole district. But
I know
they have
Newport
not
is
done that.
different, no offense.
Is there any talk, Sarah, or even reps statewide of trying to regionalize these in the special education?
Or just-
Instead of having 38 districts with.
Or just the costs. I
Or
mean,
the
it-
cost?
This up several times. This
Okay.
comes up pretty much every year.
Okay.
And the kickback we get from the cities and towns is phenomenal.
Oh, all right.
People do not want their kids, if you're in Warwick, they don't want to share with Cranston, vice versa. People don't want to have to go from Tucket to Central Falls or the Providence. They just want to have their little regional school, little parochial school. The state is very parochial.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, you're right. Right.
But what about, somehow trying to normalize the funding or region, or, I can see sort of the program, people, like local control, local providers. But is there any possibility of saying, well, okay, sort of like the transportation contract, I know that never really goes anywhere either, but since this is a cost that every district faces and is vulnerable to, yeah,
I think that's out of our scope.
You vary costs from district to district too.
Yeah.
What you're paying teachers, or you're paying bus drivers in Tiverton might be very, very different from what's happening in Barrington, or East Greenwich, or Westfield. So, I mean, you can't really compare apples to apples.
Mhm.
Unless you have the statewide teachers contract, and everyone just screams bloody murder when that brought up.
okay.
So, you guys, I'm sorry. Anyone else?
Well, it doesn't make any sense to me that you have a universal mandate that, it seems as if we all want to make sure all of our children are educated. But this is a cost that we can keep our children in our neighborhoods, but it's a cost that, the state should pay altogether. And that it not be divvied out and have these, like, flare-ups like we're having in our budget this year. It's we're always going to have unique children with particular learning needs. And, it's a disservice, every town gets targeted sporadically and uncontrollably. It financially should be under one cup under the state.
You could pay for it any number of ways. You could increase the income tax and hit everyone across the state if you wanted to have a model like that. Or you continue the model where the state giving approximately, I believe this year, the state's share is 37% of the education of students in Tiverton. It's how do people want to be, how do people want to pay for it? You can have the state pay for the entire thing, and have the state take in all the income from its residents to pay for it. It has to pay for it somehow. It's not going to go away.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. The costs are not going to go away, and any more than the kids and their needs are going to go away.
Representative Edwards, how about you go back to the State House, ask them to put the tolls back up on the bridge? That money, that'll pay for all the
Goodness.
Mike, you are being recorded.
So what can we do to help you? What kind of information, either get it to you or get it to the people that are looking at the funding for me? Is there really anything even we can do at this point to help, or do they kind of have all the information that they have?
No, you can always participate. In fact, I strongly recommend it. When we hear about the education articles, in-house finance, send a couple of your people up, send a couple members of the school committee up, and talk about your issues. And you have these, you call them out of whack numbers, and you can't control how much out of district is going to cost you, and yet, as you said, you're capped. If that's an issue, you want to bring that to the forefront. And it helps when people from the town come up and actually testify. The best testimony we ever get is from the people who are living it. I mean, we can talk about it all day long. There's 75 of us. There's 1,050,000 people in the state. We want to hear from more of you.
Are there other questions on the part of the members of the Budget Committee or the Town Council? Ms. Hilton?
I actually have two things. I do have one question about the collaborative. I have to admit today that in an effort to be prepared, I went online to try and find your financial data, to try and find really sort of any data about the collaborative. Because you can go to the RIDE portal and find out virtually everything you want about every public school system around. There doesn't seem to be any published or easily accessible data about your budget, your staffing, your historical growth. Do you publish that anywhere?
It's really, is that Salon? It's really published in the towns that are, that make up our region. It's in their budgets.
Yes, it is in their budget, but in terms of the slides that you just put up, for example, the number of administrators that you have, the number of speech pathologists you have, and while I found that helpful, it would have been even more helpful for me if I could have seen Tiverton shares 41%.
Yeah.
What's Middletown's and Little Compton, recognizing their different school districts. So, given as much funding as, comes from the town, it would be really helpful, I think, for the citizens to be able to see exactly, what your budget is, how it goes from year to year, what your staffing is, how it goes from year to year, what programs that you are that are upper, and for us to be able to, at least a little bit, know how we compare to the other schools.
Sure, I appreciate that recommendation. Maybe we can put the PowerPoint up on the Tiverton website to include that information.
It would be, but it would be really helpful to have the rest of it. In other words, with the comparison with Middletown and Middletown and how the services get divided up. And you can dig through it a little bit on RIDE, but it's very, very hard to pick out of those budgets. So if you consider
They do have the region in total. It's not broken out, but they do have audited financials. Are those available online anywhere?
We don't have those online. Did you put
No.
yours on?
Okay.
No.
The town
So-
puts our
Town
audited
does, yes.
financials
So-
online, yes.
So,
But, things like that, and where you do have audited financials.
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one request, and if you would consider doing it, I can do that as well. The second is, and I'm only one counselor, so I can't speak for another council, but to our representatives here, while this is inherently a school committee problem, first off, it's really a town-wide problem. And while the school committee has its budget and council has its budget, at the same time, we do have to work together, and we have a tax cap to work with. We try, and the budget committee tries to sort of balance the needs. So if the council can do something to help as well, if our voices could be helpful in all of this, because it's not just the school committee issue, this bouncing budget. Certainly, I as one counselor would be happy to put it on the agenda and with a resolution from the council or whether or not we come testify a little bit, we'd be happy to do it, because it's really bigger than just what the school committee faces.
That's actually, because I know they are looking at the funding formula of increasing the special ed percentage. Would that be helpful to get resolutions maybe from all three of our bodies?
It wouldn't hurt, but a resolution is just a piece of paper.
Okay, so it
We get
come and talk.
lots of them.
Okay.
Your best bet is to actually come, take the time, and testify in person. And you can bring a resolution with you.
Gotcha. Okay.
We only get 48 hours notice when what's coming before finance. But if you look on Friday afternoons, you go to the committee calendars, you can actually go to House Finance, because that's where it's going to be heard. You can go to House Finance and look for budget articles that pertain directly to education.
Peter, is Tim Duffy pretty good at giving
Yeah, he
us a
sends
heads
it-
up
he
when
sends
those
those
are
out.
coming?
We get those.
So we can pass that information
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
We have somebody with the Rhode Island Association of School Committees.
He sends those to
that
us.
He's
He does.
very good at, hey, you guys, this is coming up Tuesday, this is coming up Monday. So when we see, like Rep. Edwards said, these sort of things, just to have two of us show up and just, this is a,
Can I
So-
ask you a question as someone that has never been to the State House to testify? What is the meaning of the term rise of the House?
That's when we finish the business on the House floor.
So it means
And it can
nothing.
be-
Then they go into
It
their
means
committees.
nothing.
It's like early January, it can be.
You just go sit there.
midnight
Yep.
in June.
So that doesn't indicate the starting time?
No.
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 Whenever we finish our business on the House floor.
It depends how many bills we have that hit the floor to vote on.
And then they break into the
And what time do you typically start a session?
Right now, I target for my committee hearings 5:30 to
Okay.
start. But if you call us ahead of time, I'll look at the calendar, I can tell you within half an hour or so when I believe the rise of the House is going to be.
Thank you.
So, Trish, one of the, we can send the slides from tonight certainly to you. Ultimately, the region is controlled by the 3-member districts, so we can certainly put up online, whatever the consensus of the districts is to
We can put the
publish. But more to the point for us this budget year, if either the budget committee or the town council wants more information specifically about special education, or of course any part of the budget, please let us know what that information is, and we will, I'm sure, be able to get it to you. With the one caveat is that sometimes when you get to a degree of granularity that risks de-identifying a
Can't do that.
child,
No.
or not de-identifying, yeah, de-identifying.
It's confidential.
It's confidential, and so we wouldn't be able to sort of say, well, this out-of-district placement costs this amount of money at this school. If it's a one-off, then that risks breaching the confidentiality of the child.
I mean, we'll put this PowerPoint on our website, and then you can look at it that way. And I have a copy of the FY18 audited financials, so I'll give you, as you gave it to me, so Peter does too. So we can throw that up as well. Same place.
Just to clarify, my comment's really about the sort of financial data.
No.
Or as an interested taxpayer.
No, agreed.
Yep.
The council doesn't, we don't have any purview or sort of ask regular questions about your budget. That's for you to do. So I think my question's about the sort of general financials and staffing is more as an interested citizen who wanted to know.
No,
I
agreed.
think I'm probably the only one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why I said we'll put at least that data that we have.
I think that's a good idea and a good recommendation, so that people
Yeah,
can
I
sort of
appreciate
see.
that recommendation too, and I'll talk to the Board of Superintendents on how we can do that. We want to be transparent, so whatever we can do to make that happen, we will.
You have a website, don't you?
We do.
You could link it right there.
Dr. Larkin?
Ms. Black?
Senator DePalmer and FELAG sent they can't make it because they just got out, so they just wanted you to know.
okay, thank
that
you.
they're not coming.
We left our committees early.
They'd like to schedule, they'd like to reschedule.
You, you know what's important, who's voting for you.
That article that I shared with Dr. Sanquioni, there's that advocacy and policy on IDEA, the IDEA.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
You might want to share that
Share
with
that
the
as
town
well.
council.
Yeah, we can, maybe
I
we
think
can
that's
have
like
a,
an easy way to look at it. It makes sense.
I don't see Julie here, but maybe we can have a site just for like special ed, and we can start posting stuff there.
Mr. Ashley?
So, the Medicare receipts from last year paid for the jump in special ed. Would that funding decrease? Should we expect to see in the school budget this year that amount plus the new growth in special ed accordingly?
Absolutely.
Yes, we are
It's a
facing some,
one-time use of revenue.
we are facing challenging math. You listened well. Yeah.
That's just funding that needs to be paid up on top of the state. Because it's not fair to everybody, because it's going to move around constantly and hurt neighborhoods, but it's going to hurt other classes of students unpredictably. So if our budget is, if the rest of Tiverton school budget has to tune down everything else to adjust.
Yeah.
Which is what you will be seeing when we come before you.
Right, and the only way to prevent that for everybody across the state is for the state to take this important issue on and fund it.
Varies from state to state.
So, I think I can speak a little bit about Massachusetts, but Peter probably can more substantially. But in general, funding in Massachusetts runs through the state to a much greater extent than it does in Rhode Island. I don't know if you want to.
I'd echo that. The percentage of reimbursement on special education placements and in special education as a whole in Massachusetts is much higher. I can get you the exact amounts, but it's in the 30s%, something like that. You get from state aid.
But, you know, Jennifer, you made an important point as well that whereas there are certain components of special education that are mandated by law, and they're essentially unfunded mandates, I suppose, or mandates which we must fund. And it isn't absolutely important, correct? And that's why it, you know, has the force of law behind it. Many other components of education are not mandated or have the force of law behind them. So that is where, you know, push starts to come to shove. Correct. Right. Yes. All right, any other questions from the council or budget committee?
Or school committee?
Or, yeah,
I've been waiting.
yes. So it's basically, yeah.
Which includes teachers, parents,
Administrators.
the students sometimes, in LEA, someone from the district. So it's an IEP team. Yeah.
A child's physician can also multiply that as a recommendation to the physician, correct?
Yeah, we always take any sort of recommendation when we're looking at what services look like, and I always like to talk about services, not placement, because it really is about services, but yeah, a doctor could have some recommendations that we take into consideration on what services would be established.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Thank you. Sarah, this question for you. I see these specialized programs are broken out amongst mainly Tiverton and Middletown. The behavior support classes starting at grade 2 are exclusively in Middletown. Can you kind of explain to me why that is?
Yes, so some of the students require that level of service for several years. So to try and not have so many transitions for the students back and forth from district to district, we decided to have sort of the older students more in Middletown and have the K1 here. And then when they move to Middletown, try not to have as many transitions for them.
I understand that the behavior support's probably one of your growth populations.
You are right.
Will there come a time in the near future where we can perhaps split it out and take the Tiverton kids back home?
Yeah, I think when we look at the number of students we have altogether, I think that's something certainly we can look at. We always try and look at that. You know, we are a regional program and we get that benefit, but we also get that we want to keep the students in their home district.
Well, you understand
But-
from the parents' perspective,
Absolutely.
and I've heard this from
Yep.
parents, why do we have to send our kids
Yep.
to Middletown?
Right.
So I want to make sure that, you know, everybody understands that this is something that you're looking at, and that, you know, if we do somewhere down the road have that opportunity perhaps to take some of these kids back to Tiverton, that I for one, would be fully supportive of that.
Yeah, we hear that from families too and support them in all those transitions. We understand it can be difficult, but thank you.
Okay, I think that completes that item on the agenda. I don't know if you guys want to close your meeting or continue to
CT?
stay?
Do you want to stay and
For
hear about
CT?
CT?
Nice. Okay. I mean, you don't have to leave. I'm just asking if you.
Well,
No,
just-
no,
just
I'm
so just so the budget committee and the council understand, CTE is one of those things now that basically they've created choice. So if you have a CTE program, similar program in another district.
Don't let those guys.
And one of, we're not done.
Representatives Edward and Canario, we actually were hoping you would stay for this part of the.
Always get while it gets good.
Jerry, I'm gonna close our meeting in case some of us
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to leave.
okay.
It's gonna be-
You guys have said you can close in case people want to leave.
Yeah.
Jay and Dennis, there is actually state law that governs this
Yes,
and regulations. We really would like you to stay if you can. I have a button here that can lock the door. Should I use that?
We'll go quick. Peter will do it quick. But
All right,
there is a
so-
financial element to it.
Could I, I'd like to
Okay.
entertain a motion for the town council to adjourn our meeting. Do I have a second?
Why? 'Cause I don't want to be here anymore.
All those in favor?
Okay. And Mr. Edwards, I don't know if you want to close your meeting in case people want to leave? Mr. Edwards, Jay? Do you want to close your meeting in case people want to leave? Would you like to close your meeting in case people want to leave? Because you'll lose your quorum and then you can't close it. You don't have to, I'm just saying you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yes.
It's brief.
Yes, it's brief.
You don't have to leave, I'm just saying.
Just close the meeting and watch the steak instead.
Close the meeting.
Close the meeting, and anyone who wants
Why
to
give
stay.
you this opportunity?
Okay, thanks. I just want to keep you legal, that's all. All right, Dr. Sanquioni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And won't ask you for any money here, but do want to talk a little bit about the policy. Maybe you can guide us too on maybe the potential resolution on this. So CT, Career and Technical Education, great idea to try to prepare kids for their future careers and so forth. Here in Tiverton, we have 2 approved CTs, the carpentry pathway, the engineering pathway, and we're currently creating a computer science pathway. We're very proud of the programs that we have here in Tiverton. They serve our students well. Here's the engineering pathway. Students who take those 3 courses then can divert off into some other courses and really come out with the foundations of engineering and can lead them into acceptances to engineering colleges. And here in the carpentry pathway, you can see the courses that are on there. Again, a student who takes that trajectory really comes out prepared to work in the field of carpentry, post-secondary education as an apprentice, but really is well situated to enter a career in that field. And our third one that we hope to have approved next year, we're really excited about, our computer science pathway. And you can see the last 3 courses that are listed there: cybersecurity, drone navigation, robotics, probably 3 of the highest employing fields that you can find across the country right now. We feel like we're going to give our students a huge advantage by getting some of that experience here at Tiverton High School. But here comes what we want to speak to you a little bit about, and some of the things that need to change, hopefully around how career and technical education is funded and situated here in Rhode Island. What happens is students can choose to take a CTE in any district across Rhode Island. And when that happens, the district who's losing the student has to pay a per pupil cost. And in Tiverton, that's $14,500. And that's very burdensome to the sending district. It doesn't equate to what you would lose here in the district. We all know per pupil is calculated on our salaries, our transportation, our energy, and none of that goes away except the $14,500. Again, is a huge hit to a district. Now, a corollary in Massachusetts, who has school choice and allows students to pursue different CETs, that cost is $5,000. And it makes a whole much more sense because, again, the receiving district does have to prepare for that student they're receiving, but certainly not at the 14, not at a per pupil. A per pupil is the wrong funding calculation. The other things that needs to be looked at with CTEs is there's no accountability. When a student leaves our district, for example, and goes to a CT in another district, they could say they're going there for that CET, maybe start there as a freshman. If they drop out sophomore or junior year, we have no idea, yet we continue to receive that quarterly bill. And just this year, we were billed for a student who's no longer even at a school. There's just no accountability built into the CTE regulations. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, is that districts offer the same CT. And I don't think this was ever the design when people started to think about CT here in Rhode Island. If it's a different program, for example, if there was a nursing program at, say, for example, Portsmouth, and we don't have nursing here in Tiverton, great, we should allow our students to go there. But if we're offering the engineering program and another district's offering the engineering program, students can elect to change and go to that program when they're identical. And that speaks to me as a superintendent, says they're not going there for the education then. They're going there for a whole host of different reasons. It could be athletics, could be drama, could be a million other things, but it's not for the educational program. And I don't think that was the design of CTE. So I think importantly then, could we look at restricting students leaving a district for a program that's identical to what's being offered here? Here in Tiverton, the impact is, as you can see up there, we receive 1 student in our carpentry program, yet we lose 5 students. Again, these aren't the numbers you saw in special education, but all those students are still underclassmen, and 3 more students have applied to leave this year. So the impact on our district next year is going to be about $115,000 that we'll send out. Again, taking into consideration all the points I'm trying to make here this evening, I'm suggesting that can we change the funding formula from per pupil to a more reasonable $5,000? Can we allow district to deny students leaving for the exact CTE being offered in another district? Because again, I don't believe that's for educational reasons. And lastly, there should be an accountability factor built in for any student receiving district to continue to communicate with the sending district who's paying that bill that yes, that student is pursuing the CTE program that they signed up for. So there's your Cliff Notes version real quick. Love to know how we can pursue that.
This is really, I'm sure you guys have heard this, this really is an issue in like Smithfield and some of those other communities. Yeah.
Was it you and I had a discussion about the money following people, but it was for, was the mayoral academies?
That might have been,
Yeah.
it was different, it's the same thing.
Same purpose. And I think that's a discussion that you have to have with RIDE.
We've had it at RIDE, and they tell us we were at RIDE on Friday.
We make law, which is general, and then it goes to the administration, and they get down in the weeds and create the bureaucracy that makes it. We do not implement stuff on that level.
So you have no impact on the funding formula.
I want to say the Senate
But not the money that follows the student. We don't do that.
So who could change the per pupil? Because again, we were at RIDE, wow, because we were there Friday, and they absolutely looked us in the eyes and said,
We cannot dictate to them how they distribute that money. We can only give them the block of money, and then they in turn are the ones that determine.
Isn't this part of that whole funding formula discussion, though? I want to say Senate Education is already looking at this.
They are.
Yeah.
Yes, right, you're absolutely right.
Burrellville, I thought it was.
Yep.
No, it's definitely in the Senate. I don't know if the House is, I don't know how that works.
If I could,
I mean, I'm on House Finance, we would see the money coming through. We just see the gross amount of portion of the state. And it's not HEW. I mean, education shows that would be something that's coming before.
so if you don't mind, we have this reported, a special legislative task force to study Rhode Island's education funding formula. It's in there.
That's what I was gonna say.
If we're looking at the whole funding formula itself, we did it in 2012, 10.
Right.
But-
So the CT is in here, in this formula, and it has a recommendation in here.
Could be a recommendation,
Right.
but RIDE is the one who is going to
I-
administer the program.
Yeah,
They're
so
the
I,
ones who are gonna set the guidelines.
I think what Representative Edwards is getting at is that the legislature passes a law, the governor then signs it, but this is at the level of the regulations that the department then writes in order to enact the law or sort of make the law real. But it seems like RIDE is saying something differently to you than what you guys are saying to us. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so I work with the Department of Health, we do too, so, yeah.
Something from the state level, and they complain to us about stuff that's in the weeds.
Right.
detail, And we have no control over the details. The only thing we can do is go in and create legislation to nip the small details in the bud. That's it.
So who then has, and I'm,
Governor and RIDE.
I was just gonna say, it must be, it rests with the governor's office ultimately.
With RIDE.
I
We
don't know.
can, I can bring them down here. Dennis and I can get them to come down to Tiverton, so we can hear exactly what they're telling you and refute it then and there. I mean, that's what take, I've done
yeah.
that with.
We've done that.
Labor, I've done it with.
We've done it. Yeah.
RIDOT.
Yep.
I mean, those are all entities that will say, oh, we can't pave that road, the town owns it. Or we can't, educate your children because the
Right.
town owns it. We can't do this.
Well, it's a huge statewide issue. This is big numbers for other communities.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And like I said, the sport aspect was huge.
Right.
Right.
Their town had a similar program.
I agree.
Right, it was the coach that was actually recruiting the kid into a CTE program under the guise of education, and then they're playing for the football team. Yeah.
And the whole point though is it's supposed to be pathway options, because like Peter said, the reasoning for it and what's behind it is good.
Yeah, absolutely. In theory, it's great.
In theory, it's great, but in practice, it's exploding and it's not working.
Well, and what you really need to create is a instructional per pupil cost that will, be calculated on whether or not you have an IEP, takes out all of the electric bills and the administrative stuff and stuff like that. So that what you want to do is not incentivize a superintendent or a coach, I guess, to try and attract a student to their program because of the per pupil cost, as opposed to trying to build an alternative quality program that will give
Agree,
give
but I guess who do we talk to?
Yeah, so I guess that's the real question.
But I'm not sure.
You guys are saying RIDE,
We'll go back to them.
right? Okay.
I appreciate that, thank you. We'll go back to them. We were with their attorney on Friday.
All the time.
I'm sorry?
I talk to department heads all the time on
Yeah.
different issues. So if this is an ongoing issue, you're not getting the answers you need, just let us know.
Okay.
We'll call them and get them down here.
Appreciate that, thank you. We'll try again, see what they say.
Thank you.
You all set?
Yes. I didn't want to be so,
Poor thing, huh?
so presumptuous as to dismiss you, so.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Well, and Actually, thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming, and
Thank you.
actually to the town council and the budget committee.
I'm gonna drop the check off.
Bye-bye,
So-
thank you.
Seriously, this is actually, I think, a really good example of the collaboration that we really all strive for in order to sort of make Tiverton a livable place and recognize that we all sort of share a common fate. So thank you guys for coming. And
Peter, I'm gonna reach out to Senator Palma too, because I swear that I saw there was legislation
Yeah.
introduced,
Yeah.
at least on the
It's-
Senate side.
Yeah, and you know, Chris was with me on Friday. We sat there with the attorney from RIDE, and they looked us in the eye, and what did they say?
Absolutely. They were like, you need to go to your state
State
legislature.
legislature.
This is in the funding formula.
Okay.
This is
Well,
part
we'll
of
get it
state
straight.
statute.
We'll get it
The
straight.
attorney was very clear. I can't change the law, he kept saying. I
So
can't
we'll-
change the
we'll-
law.
we'll get
I
them
just
then.
follow the law.
Yep.
So we will
Sounds
go
good.
back.
all right, we are on item 10G, capital budget presentation. Dr. Sanquioni?
So as part of our budget, not our operating budget, we have some capital requests. You have the full capital plan, the 5-year plan in your budget book. From that, as an administrative team, we've called out these certain issues here that we feel the ones that should be funded this year. We want to present that to the committee this evening for your approval, but also say to you, if there's other things on the capital list you want to add or swap out here, you know, we want to engage in that conversation with you too. Again, we thought these were the most pertinent ones. Again, to continue with the refurbishment of the bathrooms, both at the middle school and the high school. We have 4 being refurbished currently right now, and we need to continue to do that. The front steps at the middle school, the siding and power washing range or a door at Fort Barton, fixing the tennis courts out there. That process began last year, and some kitchen equipment. So a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So I'll show you the steps at Tiverton Middle School. I think Miss Craven holds her breath every morning, hoping that someone doesn't fall and break an ankle when they walk down these. And you can see they're in pretty deplorable condition. They are coned off as best we can to try to keep people who are using them as safe as possible. Again, I'll move on to the bathrooms. So this is the bathroom at the high school. Again, this is the one we would replace next year, and you can see that it's over 30 years of use that needs to be replaced. Again, that same bathroom here, and if you've been in them, enough said there. And again, just to give you an idea, the work is being done. So here's the bathroom at the high school now that has been brought down to the studs and will be completely refurbished, right back up. Every part of it is being replaced. This should be completed by the first week in March. Again, another look at the bathroom being renovated here at the high school. So kitchen equipment. Our kitchen equipment was Mr. Mendes. How old is this kitchen equipment, Mike? Okay. So that's a dishwasher there that barely functions there. They sent me a video today, and the floor looked like a bathtub, and I'm not exaggerating. Whether you see that mat right there was covered in white soap and had about 3 inches of water on it, and that's a daily occurrence. This is the middle school bathroom. Again, the same idea. We want to replace these. They're just been worn out. And a middle school bathroom, I want to show you the stalls there that were painted by the Craven crew, who did a lot of great work to make it as palatable as possible. But even with that, those bathrooms still need a lot of attention. And we have a front door at Fort Barton that has its lock that can be breached at times. I know this keeps Principal Wardell up on evenings. We do our best to keep the school as secure as possible, but that door needs to be replaced. And then over at Ranger, we've got some significant mold and some damage to the siding. You can see in the circle there's a better picture here of the siding. You can see there, you can replace it now at one cost. If you leave it there, it's eventually going to have water behind it. It's going to cause significantly greater damage if it's not repaired as soon as possible. And there's a better look at the mold. It's the whole north side of the building. Looks like that, so you can see the green. And again, it's something you want to take care of now when it's still a project that can be done, rather financially responsible. And then the last thing on our plan is a consideration for a van. And, we talked about special education transportation. We also have the McKinney-Vento transportation. There's a lot of kids going out of the district, and we pay a significant amount of money to transport those kids. So I pulled out a couple, but I want to highlight one here. We send a student to a very specialized program, and it's $50,000 annually to transport that student. And so on top of that, if we had a van, we could offset that cost immediately. And then on top of that, every time we send a sports team to an away game, it's anywhere between $300 and $500 per contest. And a lot of our teams have numbers that could fit on a van, our tennis team, our cross-country team, just to name a couple. So we started to eliminate those $500 bus trips and the $50,000 special ed transportation for a student, and then could use it for other things. I think within a year or two, you'd offset the cost of that van and make it a cost savings for the district. So again, I'll go back to the list here and just say that, this is what, as an administrative team, we've come up with as our capital request, but certainly want the school committee input on where you'd like to see this go. I'll go through Jerry.
Yeah,
Good.
Mr. Edwards.
What you have spent on costs that you hope you will alleviate by having the van. In other words, how many bus trips that you have to pay for that this van could do for at least the last year. So just a little more supporting
Sure.
effort, if you will, than just saying we want $75,000 for a van.
Just so the budget committee understands, we haven't approved this yet.
Oh, I understand.
We haven't even approved this.
But
So we don't know what's coming before you.
if it does come before us,
If it does, yeah.
have a little bit more meat for the discussion.
So anything that we're talking about budget-wise tonight, we have not
Oh, I understand that.
approved or decided anything. So I just wanted to make that clear that
And I understand it may come off the list.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't,
And if I can just request, any of that does come to us, if you can just point out the health and safety items, that we would get the 40%.
Sure, yep.
reimbursement,
Good
Because I
point.
think that's really important also.
Yeah, thank you. Great suggestion.
Dr. Sanquioni, a couple of these items are fairly small, and one in particular, the mold issues at Ranger. Those have been growing for about 3 years now. We haven't dealt with that as part of our maintenance budget?
We watched Ranger about 3 years ago. Mr. Mims did, and he had a company come.
My very first year on this committee, I went on the school tours with the budget committee on a cold January, February,
Sure.
snowy morning. And I specifically remember, and he's not here with us tonight.
Joe Souza.
Mr. Souza.
Yeah.
He went nuts over,
Well, it's something that's not, it's going to continue to come back.
it should have been dealt with before now.
Well, it was dealt with and it's returned, so it's something that we need to continually wash and clean, especially on the north side of the building where the wind is just tremendous.
So do we need to consider perhaps a different kind of siding?
siding, yeah.
That's a possibility, maybe we were talking about.
Well,
well, it's the north side of the building, and it won't matter. Actually, if you put vinyl on,
You power
mold
wash
and
it.
mildew loves vinyl.
Mhm.
So it's like they said, it's not a matter of, well, we did it 3 years ago. You may have to do it every year.
and
on
it's
a
part of regular
schedule.
upkeep
Right.
at that
And
point.
if you don't keep up with it, it will do damage.
Agree, agree.
Yeah, I would like to agree on that as well. So I've seen that in the past, sometimes out campaigning or whatever in front of Ranger School. I mean, I have vinyl on my house. I have a south-facing part, which gets mildew every year. But guess what I do every year? Put on my boots, I get out my power washer, and I get filthy, but I clean it, and I do it every year. So as a resident, and I'm not pointing any fingers at anyone, but I'd like to see that clean once a year, and I'll come out myself with my power washer, and I'll help. If anyone wants to join me, I'll help power wash it every year. So if anyone's willing to help me do it, I'll do it at no charge.
Is it to the point where it's
beyond just power washing now?
Yes.
It looked it from the
One
pictures.
section is beyond the point.
Yeah, let me bring it to you.
So I mean, that's part of the gutter
You-
system.
Yep, I see
So
that.
there's some maintenance that needs to be done, reconstruction.
Right there. You're going to have to replace some of the boards.
That needs
Yeah.
to be replaced.
That was the exact spot. Yep.
That's part of the building.
But that needs to be replaced because of the lack of,
No, agreed, that we need to have a
Right.
better plan for the mold.
it's like the schools, we just need to maintain them on a more appropriate basis, and maybe we can avoid these costs of, fixing them.
And then my second question and request for you, Dr. Sanquioni, is the kitchen equipment. That's an awful large number without having breakdown of exactly what you want to buy.
Okay.
And honestly, getting good estimates is going to be important too.
Yep.
To Mr. Edwards' point.
Yeah, we
I
actually
think
have,
we owe it to the
estimates.
town To have some solid estimates on these things and broken down.
Yeah, we have those, so no problem. I can plug those in.
Thank you.
So we have that 5-year capital plan, were any of these things on it, or are they all just additional things that crop up?
No, I would say 90% of that is on the capital plan.
And reimbursable?
So if you go to the list, what would be reimbursed by ride? At most likely 40% would be the bathrooms, the front steps, the door,
Well, that's a good chunk of money.
those three.
Why would the kitchen?
Is it health and safety?
It's not health and
Probably
safety, it's not,
won't.
yeah,
Get salmonella.
But nothing in the kitchen.
it's not.
Can ask.
It's not on it, you know.
Can we ask them? Like,
We can, but their work, they budget based upon your 5-year plan.
oh, right,
And so it's not on there. Now, we're about to redo that plan.
right.
And it'll be, so we can certainly start adding some of the stuff on there, but that plan
But
won't
the
kick
stuff
into
that's on
reimbursement.
there will be able to be
Yes, so that's
reimbursable.
why I'm identifying the things that are on there.
Okay, great.
Dr. Sanquioni, can I just ask too, as we're looking at the capital and we're talking about the percentages that the town gets reimbursed, up to date for the previous projects that we've done, how much has the town been reimbursed?
Oh, we've
I can
got that
speak
number.
specifically on the last 2 years, it's over 700,000.
Thank you. And that money goes into the general fund, not back into the school department?
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, and I would add that reimbursement was off of fund balance funds that did the lighting and the tiles, not the bond money that was reimbursed the previous years before that.
It's different.
Okay.
I
Any
will
other
tell you
questions
that
on the?
Denise will say that helped offset the decrease in state aid that the town had to make up.
Yeah. All right. So any other questions about the capital budget presentation?
Do you want to approve
Yeah,
that so I know what direction to go?
Can I have a motion to approve? No? No one would like to make a motion to approve the capital budget?
I would like us to perhaps revisit it at our next meeting. Do we have another meeting before we go to the budget committee?
2 days before.
Yep. Okay. We can continue this to the next meeting.
May I ask one more question while we have the budget committee members here?
Yep.
I don't know how many of you were able to go on this year's tours and did anything else stand out that we haven't seen?
I think the stairs are really important. The stairs, I think, are a big issue.
At the middle school?
Those were probably the most important. And, when you, as a parent, and I'm dropping off there, how many kids come down those stairs from the drop-off line and how many teachers are walking across there, I think the stairs are crucial.
We visited all of these issues.
Right.
I mean, obviously not the band. One of the things that we did see in the kitchen, and it was wet, and we were there on Saturday, there was some moisture on the floor. It's a tile floor, that's really an excellent thing to happen, it's slippery, it's wet. But what we also saw, and didn't have an answer for, was styrofoam trays, so we're not sure if they're using styrofoam trays to serve, because they're not able to wash some of the trays. So I don't know if that's been
So I can answer that if you'd like.
Yeah.
We are, and for the exact reason. So those styrofoam trays you saw are put in use every day.
Is there a reason that we're using styrofoam versus a biodegradable tray?
Cost per tray. Cost per tray. It's, you know,
Yeah, biodegradable,
it's more expensive.
Dr. Larkin?
Yes, Mrs. Black?
We just had our health and wellness meeting, and we asked them that question. We said that the budget committee had toured, and they were asking about the styrofoam trays. And they said that Barrington had gone through this because they made all their new regulations about bags and everything else. And they said they can do it, and we can all look at it, but the cost is out of this world. That, I mean, they had just finished with Barrington, so they have everything ready to go if we ever want to look at that. No, I know, I'm just saying what they said, so we can look at it, definitely, you know. but
Someone
it's-
from Chartwell was with us at that wellness subcommittee, and so just briefly, 2 points to add, if I may, to what Mrs. Black mentioned. One is there's a regulation about sanitizing the trays, and currently they can't be sanitized. Also, they spoke about any spillage onto a compostable or recyclable tray. One you might think would be recyclable is actually not allowed to be recycled. So if a kid spills his or her soup or has a little ketchup on the tray, it
They
is
won't take it.
tossed and not recycled. And so they found, that's a detail, but they found that really reducing any cost savings and certainly any green economy scale savings there in the towns that have required that.
So,
Okay,
are
can I
you
ask,
saying if we
I'll
get...
ask one question relative to this. Does the town pick up the school's trash, or do you contract it out?
Mike?
That is contracted out.
So that doesn't contribute to our capital end. So any trash that you generate out of all the schools goes to the central landfill, but not on our dime and not on our weight limit. The schools were taking.
We could trade you that.
Yeah.
Still on our dime.
It's not our dime.
We pay for it, so you take.
All right. So we're sort of a little bit off topic, I have to say. So,
So we'll capital come
yep,
back.
we are done with capital budget presentation. Item 10J, request to accept Up with School Arts Grant. Ms. Craven?
Yes, Steve Schreiner, I'm requesting this grant on his behalf for our middle school ceramics program. He requested $1,000 and received the grant, so from Up with School Arts.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, item 10K, request to accept early dismissal for senior project. I think that's a cool senior project. I want to get early dismissal from work.
Yes.
Tell
this
us
is,
about this, Mr. Ashley.
A request for our dismissing our students early on Wednesday, May 20th, for our annual senior project presentation. Always a highlight of the year where every senior presents his or her project. That's a year-long project, and we bring the community judges, and because of that, we ask for the students to be released halfway through the day, that day.
And we're always looking for judges.
We are, yes. This is the plug, so
It's a fun morning, or afternoon.
it is a great
All right.
afternoon.
A
And you get a lunch
motion-
out of it.
Second?
Yes,
Okay.
Wednesday, May 20th.
I thought the project was to get out of school early. not-
Unfortunately not, no.
Give any ideas, Dr.
All right.
Larkin?
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Cool. All right.
Thank you.
Item 11, old business FY budget overview. Do we need
We need to, I'm going to strongly suggest to the committee that we add an additional budget meeting.
Yes,
And I'd wanted to throw out 3 potential dates, Thursday, the 20th, or Saturday, the 22nd, or Monday, the 24th.
What are those dates again? What are the dates again, Peter?
Thursday, the 20th, Saturday, the 22nd, or Monday, the 24th. We have a meeting on the 25th, and we're with the Budget Committee on the 27th, so
Monday or Thursday, I'm not doing another Saturday. guys can do it, I'm not doing it on Saturday.
Okay, that's one vote.
I'm available any of them.
I don't,
Deb?
I'm sorry, I didn't have my Thursday.
Sure.
Thursday the 20th.
The 20th, 22nd, or 24th?
I assume the 20th's in the evening.
Yes, whatever.
20th is a Thursday, the 22nd is a
Saturday.
Saturday, and the
4th is a Monday.
is a
Monday.
Monday.
I think Thursday, the 20th sounds most promising to me. Mrs. Black?
Anyone's fine with me.
All right, can you do the Thursday, the 20th?
Saturday, that's fine.
Anything but Saturday, okay.
Anything but Saturday.
Deb? Diane? Thursday, the 20th?
I can,
I can't do the 20th, but if the four of you can, go ahead.
I don't have a problem with Saturday.
I can do Monday.
How about the Monday then?
I can do Monday.
I can do that too.
Can everyone do Monday?
Lee,
It's fine
Monday?
with me.
Monday, the 24th?
Do Monday.
7,
And I won't miss the budget
6:30.
meeting.
I'll provide dinner if you come early. Amy's
Oh,
office.
good.
I can make 6:30 that day.
I can
I
come
think.
6:30.
6:30 on the
Diane?
24th.
6:30 is good. Okay. Elaine,
So
good?
what's that be, the
4th.
in Amy's office?
Amy's office.
February
We'll have
24th.
food if you come in right from work.
February the 24th, 6:30, budget.
And mints?
6:30?
And mints. 6:30.
Okay.
Hope you're available.
Peter, do we need to do anything else about the budget overview, or?
No, we
Do
just,
we need to remove it from the agenda for today?
No, we don't need to remove it. We can just,
We can just not do it.
all right. Announcements, scheduled meetings, reports. Mrs. Black, Health and Wellness Report?
Yes, so I mentioned we had our health and wellness meeting, and we were mentioned in the Rhode Island Healthy Schools Coalition magazine. And it says, healthy staff, healthy schools, and healthy students, it's a smart strategy. And it talks about Amy Downley Roach, how she got together this, the chef to come and cook his mood foods for the staff at Picasset. It was really, really good. He's a very good cook. So the first one was to make you alert. It was Moroccan chicken and kale, and that was to make you alert. To make you confident, strawberry avocado smoothie. And there was one for, to make you calm, that's a nice one. Broccoli raisin salad, that's supposed to make you calm. We can have that at the next meeting. So it was really fun. He showed all the recipes, and they have shirts on that have, calm and little creatures. It's really cute. So they're going around all the schools to do that. So that was the mood foods.
It's
And
Wellness Report.
the Tiverton Prevention kids came and talked about their trip to Washington, which they talked to us about, and the vaping and everything else, and that was really nice. And so it was a good meeting, and that's good.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
February 8th was the school tour with Budget Committee. I think we've already covered that, unless anybody else has any other comments. And you see our agendas tentatively for the next several meetings. Anything else? All right,
Just-
I'm going to ask for a motion to move into executive session under Rhode Island General Law 4246 5A2, legal advice, litigation, collective bargaining, Council 94, NEA Tiverton, superintendent's goals, and school security. Can I have that motion? Is there a
Make that-
second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.